welcome to How to Get a Perfect Score on the ACT from someone who has. My name is Tina Wiles. I have been tutoring and teaching the ACT for over 10 years. As you can see, I went to the University of Michigan. My degree is in industrial engineering. I went back to school 3 years ago in order to become a certified high school math teacher. I know it is crazy, but I have a passion for the ACT. I found out that you can take it at any age, so I do go sit with all the high school juniors and take it 2 to 3 times a year. I have scored a 36 several times, and when I don't score a 36, I get a 35. When I'm not helping my students, I spend time with my amazing husband and 4 sons, ages 6 to 13. Before we dive into some tips and tricks for the ACT, let's put scores into perspective. Each of the 4 sections, English, Math, Reading, and Science, is scored out of 36. Those 4 scores are averaged together, and the good news is the ACT does round up. On the ACT, getting about half of the questions correct on any section is about a 20 on the test. And as you can see, scoring a 20 is better than 50% of the country. One thing that is surprising is how fast the percentiles increase. Going up 1 to 2 points from a 20 is already better than 60% of the country. A 25 to a 27 is a big goal to hit for a lot of students because that is where some scholarship money starts to come into play. 28 and above is scoring better than at least 90% of the country. And once you get to the mid-30s and up, it is literally just a couple of questions wrong on the entire test that can keep you from that elusive 36. Now let's take a look at what ACT scores mean when it comes to scholarship money. I have a lot of students that apply to the University of Iowa, so I thought this would be a good example to go through. University of Iowa has several scholarships that are automatic based on your ACT and GPA. That means that if you meet the qualifications, you get the scholarship. You don't even need to apply for it. All of the data on this chart is for the totals over 4 years of earning the scholarships. So getting the $40,000 scholarship is actually $10,000 a year for 4 years. Now obviously it depends on where you are starting with your ACT score, but you can see here how 1 point can drastically change the money you'll save. So let's go through an example. Let's say Jeremy has a 3.6 GPA and a 23 on his ACT. 1 point increase will get him $8,000. Going up 3 points, so from a 23 to a 26, Jeremy would jump all the way to $20,000. Now let's put this in perspective. For most ACT study programs, the average increase is 2 points. Going to class, reviewing content, learning test tricks, and practice will make a big difference. The average increase my students see is 4 points. I know the test inside and out and can help students prepare for everything they are going to see on the test. So now that you have seen how this ACT is scored and what 1 point increase can help save, let's go through some tips and tricks I share with all of my students, the 4 P's to perfection. I have developed these tips over the past 10 years and it still amazes me how well they work. The 4 P words are intended to help students remember the main strategy for each section. English is Petite. Math is plug. Reading is predict. And science is point. Now let's see what they're all about. First up is English with Petite. It is crazy how often the shortest answer is the correct answer on the English test, which is why the P word for English is petite. Petite means short, and the English test is testing that you are actually choosing the shortest grammatically correct answer. I'm also going to add in here that looking at the simplest answer with the fewest punctuation marks helps as well. Now let's take a look at an example so that you can see Petite in action. I start off by reading the sentence. It's impossible to predict which people will dig into their pockets or if they were trying to open their purses. And I've stopped trying to guess. This definitely doesn't sound correct when I read the entire sentence. So now I'm going to start with a Petite answer choice, C. It's impossible to predict which people will dig into their pockets or open their purses. And I've stopped trying to guess. Does that sound correct? I think so, and it is the correct answer. Obviously, Petite is only one of the tips that I use with my students, but it is definitely what we start with. Now let's take a look at some math. The P word for math is plug. The big hint for math is to plug your answer choices in. If you are good at math, you probably plug and chug your answer choices without even thinking about it. But as you get to harder problems, my tip is to use your answer choices as much as possible. Let's walk through an example so I can show you what I mean. Figure below, Mr. Thompson, who is standing at point A, needs to determine the distance from point C on the ground to point E at the top of one of the second-story windows of his house. He places a mirror on the ground at point B so that when he looks in the mirror, he can see the top of the window. Mr. Thompson's eye level at point D is 6 feet above the ground. At this point, I would make notes right on the picture. Now back to the question. He notes that AB is 4 feet and BC is 14 feet. Approximately how many feet above the ground is the top of the second-story window? So what I'm looking for in this question is how long is the line with the question mark. So just based on the picture, I can eliminate some choices. If I am looking here and this line is 6, this line is definitely longer, so I can eliminate 2. If this line is 14, again, this line is longer, so I can eliminate 10. And 16 for choice H would be 14 plus a little bit more. I still think that this question mark line is longer than that, so I would eliminate 16 as well. So now if I had to guess, at least I only have 2 to choose between. To get all the way to the right answer, I can set up a proportion. 4 is to 14 as 6 would be to the question mark, so I'll call that x. I can cross multiply because I have 2 fractions set equal to each other. And when I do the math, x equals 21. So 21 is the correct answer. Now let's take a look at reading. When you take the actual test, you will get a break before it is time to jump into the reading test. The P for reading is predict. In order to predict, you read the question, but then before you look at the answer choices, you predict the answer. Then you read through the answer choices and pick the one that best matches what you thought the answer was. Ready for an example? To save time and to make this easy, I pulled out just one paragraph instead of having to read an entire passage. I recommend that you actually start with reading the passage. Every life was sacred and worthy to be improved by education, employment, health care, and affordable housing. Her goal was simple: a life of dignity and decency for all. She was uninterested in complex theories and demanded action for betterment. She feared violent revolution, but was not afraid of socialism, and she courted radicals. So the question is, according to the passage, the primary principle underlying ER's goals was that. Now here is where I would make a prediction. I would look back to the reading and try to answer the question in my own words. In this case, my prediction would be that everyone is important. Now we read through the answer choices and see which comes closest to my prediction. Everyone is important. F. Every person deserved a dignified and decent life. That is really close to what my prediction is, but let's check the other answer choices just in case. G. As First Lady, she could talk about things that had never been discussed before. H. Through radio and columns, she could show how she was interested in every person. J. She must lead a bloodless American revolution. I still feel, after reading all the rest of the answer choices, that F comes closest to my prediction of everyone is important. So that is what I would choose, and it is the correct answer. Now it's time for science. Last but not least is science. The P for science is point. I recommend to literally point to where the question is telling you to. Start by looking at the graph and/or table and reading the headings and labels. Low grade, medium grade, high grade. Now it's time for the question. According to figure 2, so I would literally put my finger on figure 2, which of the following minerals would typically be found only in rocks of a medium grade? Again, I put my finger on medium grade and I start to look down. I am looking for rocks that would only be found in medium grade. As I come down, kyanite is the only choice that is only within the medium grade part of the table. So kyanite must be the answer, and it is. I have just gone through 4 of the 20 to 30 tips that I give all my students. I truly hope that these 4 tips help you as much as they have helped so many of my students. As a reminder, English is Petite, math is plug, reading is predict, and science is point. I currently offer classes that I customize to meet the needs of your student. There are a maximum of 15 students in each class, and the classes are held at Neuqua Valley High School in Naperville, Illinois. I also offer one-on-one private tutoring in your house or at a library. I have also tutored many students over Skype. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions, and thank you for learning about the 4 P's today.